we're back at the warehouse, and first thing I want to do is answer a bunch of questions you guys have been having lately, not only with the Cressida, but just in general. First thing I want to answer is, where are some of the cars that you've seen in previous videos and they've gone without explanation on where they've gone? First thing is the Wagon. The old 76, I think, Chrysler LeBaron Wagon. That was my friend's. I wanted to swap the motor, and my plan for it was just to swap the motor, and I wanted to give it back to him, but just a bunch of things went on, and he wasn't making it very easy on me, and so I just left it back in California, and that was that. Then moving on, the lifted Miata. I ended up selling that a while back. Ever since I got the Jeep, I just started off-roading that more and more, and I just used the Miata less and less, and I decided to sell it. I figured I could use that money towards something else. And then moving on to the 240, Frank's old 240, I ended up selling that back to him. It was just way too big of a project, and it was taking up space, and I figured, you know, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I had told you guys I bought wheels for it, and I did, and I ended up getting screwed over in that deal. It was just this huge, big, like, PayPal thing, and my money was tied up for a month, and it was just huge BS. But anyways, just after the wheels fell through, I was like, screw this project. So I ended up selling that back to Frank, and I made some money off of that too, because it was kind of funny. So I sold him some parts off of his 240, and then sold it back to him for the same price I bought it. Anyways, and then moving on, I think a really big question here is the taillights on this thing. Yes, right now, we're not putting any taillights in. We're gonna wait until we completely finish this panel, and then we'll cut out for the taillights. And the reason for that is because I don't want to have to work around two bevels or whatever. I think it'll be a lot bigger pain. And someone was saying that, you know, why bother doing all this work if you're just going to cut out a bunch of it anyways. Now, I'm not cutting out a bunch of it. Realistically, I'm cutting out some very, you know, small rectangles on either side. And doing that body work is not a big deal at all. So those are taillights, so you guys can calm down. I have an idea for taillights. I know what I'm going to do, or at least what I want to do, and that's going to get done, but this whole thing needs to get finished first. And like I said, this thing, the rear bumper of this isn't going to get finished until the sides are completely done. And then someone else was commenting on the top of this. Again, I discussed, I'm not doing the top of this until the sides are completely done. There's no way I'm going to work on this if this edge isn't even finished. This edge is finished right now, or at least is close enough to be able to work on the top edge, but the other side isn't. I had some questions about interior. I'm going to do some little things in the interior initially. Maybe after the car is entirely done, we'll probably do a whole interior, just some crazy stuff. But for now, we're just going to be doing some little stuff, shift knob, steering wheel, and some little other pieces in there, just to make it a little bit more bozo. What was some of the questions?
Pothole in Bondo.
Oh my gosh. You guys continue to comment saying that as soon as I hit my first pothole out here, that Bondo is going to crack off. And I think I'm going to go ahead and let George take this one over, because he feels incredibly strongly about this one.
Okay, so as you guys know, there's like 1,000 ways to skin a cat. It's kind of the same concept when you're doing body work. Your uncle knows one way to do it, your dad does it another way, the neighbor does it another way, and then your neighbor saw it on TV this way, and somebody else watched another YouTube video on it this way. It happens like that. There's a million different ways to do body work. However, most of the body work that you guys see is body work for collision repair. The body work that you guys see taking place is, oh, I got hit, it was a fender bender, or like a baseball hit my door. We're talking about like collision repair. You gotta understand that the way that you handle body work when it comes to collision repair or any type of like repair is completely different than when you go to do something completely custom or something that doesn't just flat out exist. The way that we do this is, it's a long process, okay? It's a long process, and it starts with like foaming it, shaping it, then fiber wrapping it, resin, fiberglass hair, then bond it. Like, it doesn't work the same way. The steps are completely different. Once this stuff is applied to this car, it just doesn't fall off. You can't just hit it and it's gonna break and fall off. Yes, if you hit it with a fucking sledgehammer, it will bust. The same way that any other car will bust if you hit it with a sledgehammer. If you T-bone it with another car, yes, it's gonna break, it's gonna crack. Paint cracks with just the weather. It doesn't mean that the paint sucks or that the person that applied the paint sucks. It just, that's how it happens when you apply brute force to a still object. That's just physics, that's how it works. But this stuff will not just crack and fall off if you hit a bump. That's ridiculous to think of it that way. Bondo is very adhesive in itself. If you take a little bit of Bondo, and you mix some hardener in it, and you take just a tiny little wipe, and you walk up to your mom's car, and you wipe a little bit on her fender, there is absolutely no way that you could just get that Bondo off. Like, you're gonna have to sand it, you're gonna have to do body work in order to get that off of there. Bondo doesn't just fall off. If you've ever seen Bondo just fall off of a car, my guess would be that it wasn't Bondo or it wasn't mixed right or something like that. I couldn't even tell you. I've never seen that in my life. I've been dealing with like custom wide body cars for like 12 years. I've never in my life seen Bondo just fall off. So without getting into too much detail, it's taking over the video, on to the next question.
Let's see, how much will the Bondo weigh? Bondo weigh.
Man. This is another good one for George, but I'll start out with this one. I know every single gallon of Bondo that's gone onto this thing, and if you guys have ever picked up a piece of dry Bondo, you'll know that it weighs like next to nothing. Yes, I may have purchased a lot of gallons, but the majority of it is sanded off. And then even with that being said, with the amount of gallons that I've purchased, which is nowhere near, it's probably doesn't even surpass $200 worth of cans. And you know, some people are commenting on how much I've purchased, and you know, realistically not that much. But because this has so much custom work, and because we're trying to fill in so much stuff, yes, there is a lot of Bondo, but realistically, I would say there's maybe like 20 pounds total of Bondo. And then George, like, what do you think?
Okay, so we're gonna go to facts, we're gonna go to physics here. If you guys don't know, I'm gonna let you guys know. A gallon of water weighs roughly about 7 pounds. Okay, Bondo's possibly lighter than that. We can take a gallon of Bondo and we can weigh it, and then after we're done using it, we can weigh the can itself and then deduct that from the initial weight, giving us the actual amount of weight that the Bondo itself has. Now you have to remember, that's the weight of it. We're gonna assume and say it's 7 pounds just because water weighs 7 pounds to the gallon. If that's 7 pounds and we sand off at least half of it, now we're talking 3 pounds. Odds are that we probably shave more than that off. I couldn't tell you exactly because it depends on what part of the car we're working on. But there are times where we do apply a full wipe to the whole panel and end up only keeping maybe like 5 or 10% of what we actually apply. You have to remember, it's better to over apply and block smooth down than it would be to just hit little spots. If you do little spots, you're gonna get into unevenness. So it's better to just wipe the whole panel, the whole gallon of Bondo. I mean, we're getting them for like 12 bucks. So like, it's better to just wipe the whole panel and block it smooth back down. Taking that into consideration, since I've started working on this car, I've seen Tyler purchase, I think, 3 gallons of Bondo. So if we use that math that we set previously, that would be 21 pounds of Bondo. Assuming that we sanded off 70 to 80%, possibly 90% of that Bondo off again, I don't know, do the math. I would easily say 4 or 5 pounds of Bondo since I started working on the car. So yeah, take it all together, I would say there's probably 15 to 20 pounds of Bondo on this car. It wouldn't be logical to weigh the car now. I see a lot of people comment that you should weigh the car and then compare it to its stock weight. You have to remember that Tyler did a lot of metal work on this car before we started applying fiberglass. There's metal structures on the quarter panels, there's metal structures on the wing, there's metal structures, the whole front end is metal. So you have to remember, like, you have to deduct the weight of that metal before we start talking about the weight of the filler.
How long is it gonna take to finish?
Oh man, we get this so often, is that we've been working on this thing for so long and we've put all this time into it and it has, you know, nothing's done. But realistically, I just put out a playlist of every single video I have of this car. And I have 35 videos of this car. And I would say there's a couple of them here and there where nothing is done, basically like the initial video where I literally just talked about it. But realistically, since I've been here, me and George together, I think we've done about 10 videos on this car. And realistically, you gotta understand, I may have owned this car for I think approximately 8 or 9 months. But for the first like month or two, I didn't even touch this car. I like pulled off trim and that was about it. You guys gotta understand that in order to keep you guys entertained, I try and do videos in between the sanding and Bondo videos. And recently we've been doing like sanding video after sanding video. But previously, if you look in between, there's gotta be like 2 or 3 videos in between each sanding video. So imagine, if I'm not working on this thing every single day, let's say I work on it 1 day a week, that's only like 4 to 6, maybe 8 hours a week that's been worked on this thing. So realistically, we really don't have that many hours into this thing, and that's just because we're busy doing all the other videos all the time and working with all the other cars. But one thing I did want to talk about is whenever we stopped in Morris at your buddy's place, and he talked about how long it would take him to do this car exactly how I wanted to do it. Or actually, he didn't even see all the aero. I think all he saw was the flares, and he saw what was on the car now. So that's excluding all the aero stuff that still has yet to be done. And I think he told us it would take him about a year. And that's a professional body shop that does custom stuff on the daily.
Yeah, no, definitely. It would take, because you have to remember, you also have to circulate it within whatever cars they have. You know, the company, they don't do many cars. They take a few custom jobs and they do it. Yeah, he did say a year to do it, and we're talking $20,000 to do it. So like this is a big job. It might not come off that way because Tyler does things in like his own garage and whatnot, but this is a pretty elaborate job. Now that I've been looking more into the Bozo builds, I'm starting to realize like a lot of work goes into them. How they actually go through the process of doing it, I can't say I've ever witnessed it, but Bodywork's Bodywork, so regardless of how it is a lot of attention to detail and it is a lot of work.
We do expect this car to be finished sometime by the beginning of next season, or at least that's what we're hoping for. And that's all said and done, painted, finished, all that, ready to go out to some shows. Anyways, we have a few more questions. One more thing I want to touch on is a lot of you guys were commenting on why we're doing so much body work on the fenders or on the quarters if we're just going to end up cutting so much anyways. And that's because we need it to be finished enough so that the fender covers it. But in addition to that, I would also like for it to be as nice as possible under the fender flare just in case it's ever taken off. Obviously, I don't want super shoddy body work under the fender flare. I'd like for it to look decent. And we don't really know how much we're cutting yet either. Realistically, before I should have done any of this, I should have had my wheels, tires, coils, and the ride height set so that way I know how much to cut and then how much to body work. But that's just not how we're going to do it. This is realistically not that much more work just to end up finishing it off. As you can see, I'm really not going to bother doing this too nice. It's just all this is still going to be shown, so we're going to make that as nice as possible. A lot of questions about the motor and power upgrades just because of all the added weight. Realistically, this thing was slow as shit whenever I got it. I discussed that the motor, it probably needs a little bit of help. I don't really know. I did spark plug wires, oil change, and stuff like that. Just real simple stuff like the first day I got it. But also the transmission is, I have to put it in low and stuff like that. So with that being said, I told you guys in the beginning whenever I first got this car, I'm gonna use it how it is for as long as I can, and if I decide that it's not enough power, I will do something. I would like to manual swap it. If we decide that the motor is down on power, we might as well just go 1J or something like that. So that might be a possibility in the future. I could do like an NA1J, something like that, super simple, just something that has a little bit more power than this. But for right now, even when the car is completely finished, I don't plan to do anything motor-wise or transmission-wise. I just want to get it nice, finished, done, and then we'll, you know, attack that as it comes up. But as of now, the car's not moving, so it's not an issue. Another question we've been getting is, are we sponsored by Bondo? And the answer is no. We know there are better products out there, but the whole reason for using Bondo so much is just because it's available. We can go to any auto store, we can go to any Walmart and pick it up. Realistically, I should just buy the bigger boxes of the body filler, the nicer stuff, but that's just not how we're doing it. I just find this easiest to just use the Bondo and what I'm used to working with. Finally, before we wrap this video up, I want to talk about bringing the rest of the cars here. I do know that I'm going to be bringing the Vet at the very least, just because I do plan to do body work and then paint it, which will most likely be done in this space. I don't know when that's going to be done. I really would like to get this done, painted before that. But Miata most likely won't be brought here unless I move out of that house and no longer have a garage space. But I'd like to keep that up there for as long as possible. There's really no reason to bring it down here. Really, the only reason that this car is even here is because of the warmth, and it allows us to do body work in the colder weather. Other than that, I would not have brought it here. There really is no reason for me to be here. I have a nice big garage at home, and obviously walking outside and going in the garage is a whole lot easier than driving an hour all the way out here. But this is just optimal for what we're doing with this car. Anyways guys, that's gonna be it for today. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and peace out.